Welcome back to the channel, Bridging the Gap, Student to Engineer. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about choosing a school, how to narrow down your options and choose the right engineering school for you. So there's a funnel in your selection process. I hope that you've already done research on a lot of different schools. If you haven't gotten to that point, then hopefully this video can give you some tips. In this funnel, I have visit twice with visit and apply, and then final research and visit again. You don't necessarily have to visit schools twice, and there's some debate on whether or not it's better to visit before you apply or after you get in. That depends on a number of different factors, including your money availability, time availability, how close the school is, and a number of different factors. But just make sure that you do consider visiting if you have the means and are able to do that before you get down to the bottom and you commit and attend a school. So this process, just as it's written, you do some initial research on a bunch of different schools, apply to those schools, get acceptance, do some final detailed research, and then visit them again and then commit. So today I'm talking about a number of different considerations to take in this narrowing down process, whether you do that in your initial research or after you've been accepted is really up to you and really up to how much time you want to dedicate and when. But I will just give you some tips and things to consider. So one big page, lots of considerations. I'll just go through these quickly because we'll talk in detail about most of these in the video. But the characteristics of the school, is it big, is it small, is the campus big, small? What are the surroundings of the school? Is it urban, rural? Those kind of things. The vibe. A lot of people talk about the vibe of the school. That's really what you can understand when you go there or from reading reviews. Under location, the climate. I know some people want only cold weather schools. Some people want only hot weather. Location also near where you are from or near other relatives. The environment that it's in, is it close to hobbies that can support hobbies that you enjoy, like hiking in the mountains? Those are all things that I think are pretty general. I'm not going to go through them in this video because I feel like they're not specific to STEM. But they are definitely things that you need to consider and talk to whoever's supporting you in this process to understand what's important. These other 4 categories are what we're going to cover in this video. Starting with the cost. So cost of attendance, all schools have to publish their cost of attendance. They all need to have a net price calculator available to you. You can find those on their website, but all of that is offset by an aid package, and then we'll talk about future dollars, the opportunity for future aid when we get to that in this video. The education piece of it, what are you getting out from an education perspective? Do they have your major? Do they have access to research if that's something you want to do? Is it a prestigious school? Do you want to just pull out rankings and base on that or not? We'll talk about that. And then exposure to experiences is a huge thing that may be something that you could miss when you're looking at schools. So we'll talk about what's important there and how to maybe find some information that could set some schools apart from others. And then career outcomes, employers. Career outcomes are very important. This is why you're going to school. So we will talk about that and emphasis. That is near the end of the video, so absolutely make sure you're still on for that, because that is the advice that I give anyone that I'm talking to about finding a school. It's all about the outcomes. It's not really about all this other stuff. So we will get to that. So let's start with cost considerations. All right, so every school needs to publish a cost of attendance. You can type in the name of the school and COA, and you will get the cost of attendance for that school. It will take you to a link to their website, and it will give you the cost of attendance. This is something that's for all schools, all majors, but essentially what it is an estimate for everything that's going to cost you to go there. This is really about transparency and to get away from people thinking the tuition is just X, that's what I'm going to pay. There's much more to just paying tuition. And then the net price calculator. Often what this will show you is the same as cost of attendance, but what they are trying to do with the net price calculator is get some information from you, financial and performance in high school, so that they can tell you what you might get for need-based aid and what you might get for merit-based aid. This is also a requirement that they need to provide this for you. So make sure that you're looking at both of these for schools so that you understand if the cost of attendance looks really, really high, it looks completely out of the ballpark for you. It may be that that school offers automatic merit aid for somebody with the GPA that you have, or the SAT scores or the ACT scores. That is mostly the case for private schools and for in-state public schools. There are not that many public schools that give significant aid that will show up in a net price calculator for out-of-state schools. Okay, then something else to look at is the history of price increases. You can look up what the cost of attendance has been the last few years. If there's a school that increases by $5,000 a year, that's very different than a school that hasn't increased for a while, or a school that guarantees you that your costs will not go up while you're in school. There are people who get into school thinking they can barely afford it. This is what they're going to cost. You know, they've figured out how they're going to make it work, and then the price just keeps going up. The price of everything goes up. That's understandable, but something that you need to be aware of and you need to be looking into to make sure that the school you're looking at doesn't have a history of significant increases on an annual basis. Okay, and then the next thing is financial aid and merit aid. The usual term that we use is financial aid, but really financial aid and merit aid are two different things. Financial aid is going to be the need-based aid, and merit aid is going to be based on your performance, mostly in high school. So financial aid, you shouldn't really expect financial aid unless you are at the income level where you are getting free lunches. It used to be that people felt like there would be more financial aid, or a lot of people feel like, well, I should be getting financial aid because cost of college is so high and I can't afford it. The FAFSA will tell you and will tell the school what the government expects that you can afford. Generally, those numbers are pretty high and seem out of reach for most people. You need to be aware of that as you're going into this. So merit-based aid is a really good way to cover some of your costs, but understanding who gives aid and who doesn't is important. Again, the out-of-state students at public schools generally don't get anything. Arizona has been paying merit aid for out-of-state students, but they are changing that. I'm not aware of very many out-of-state merit aid opportunities at public schools. They're out there. You just need to be a stellar student to get it. So don't expect it. Okay, so then the next thing I think is important that I don't think a lot of people are looking at when they look at the cost of a school, and that is work opportunities. It's easy to say work opportunities. I'll go work, in the financial aid office and sit there or work in the library or do something at school. Those are fine. They're also probably minimum wage. Sometimes they are offered in your financial aid package. I understand all of that, but there are schools with significant, very positive programs that will help you pay for school in a way that you may not account for when you're first looking at your school. So internships, cooperative education, these are similar, but they are not exactly the same. And the way the programs are run are slightly different. And so you just need to be aware of the difference. Internships are generally in the summer only, or they are shorter term. They are usually one time with the employer. The cooperative education is much more of a collaborative um, opportunity for employment that you work with employers that have relationships with the school. You often will work multiple sessions with the same employer, and so you have more opportunity to develop a relationship with that employer. And in most cases, the school will um, do more for you to get that work. Um, and then work during the school year. I mentioned this because some summer internships last the whole year. You can go work full time for a company during the school year, during the summer, and then during the school year work part time. These are things to look into. I will tell you that personally, when I was at Purdue University, I was in the cooperative education program. At the time, that program was pretty structured. It looks like it's a little bit less structured now, but I worked full time for a semester and then went to school for a semester and then alternated that for 3 years. What that did is it made my time in school um, much more doable in terms of paying. So if you're just having to pay for one semester at a time, that's going to be a lot easier for you to work out how you're going to pay for that. Also, the cooperative education pay rates that are posted on the Purdue's website are significant, and they are higher than a lot of internships. So it's something to look into. Look into the different schools and see and think about what that would mean for you if you were able to get an internship or cooperative education position and work either part-time during the school year while you're going to school or alternating with your school. Definitely considerations when you're looking at how much is the total cost of getting a degree going to be for you. Okay, so education considerations. You absolutely want to get an education while you're at school. Make sure that your school is accredited. And then I'm going to go through a couple different things with the major. I talk a little bit in some other videos about majors, general majors, specific majors, focuses of the program, and then access to research. If you are highly, highly focused and you really, really want to do something specific, but a school doesn't have that very specific thing, but it does have a general thing related to it, don't be heartbroken if you have to go to the school that with the more general major. You can often minor in something, take a class in something, get internships or co-ops in that thing. There are ways to get into industries without having a very specific degree that that would put you just in that industry. Also, there are different things like the type and focus of the programs. So there are some programs like engineering and technology is a lot more hands-on than engineering. It's the difference between sitting in office and designing and being in the field and putting things together. That's a big generalization, and I encourage you to look at different resources about engineering versus engineering technology if that is something that you are looking at, the difference between those two. But when you're looking at a school, it is important to make sure that they have your major, but it's not the end of the world if they don't, as long as they have something related. So it's good to try to be narrow, but to be flexible and understand that general also is okay. So prestige is a word I use for, if you want to pull up the rankings and say, this school is ranked higher than this school, and so therefore I'm going to go to it. That is a consideration. It can get you things in the future, but it may also not be super important. So you've got to look at your options. It is something to consider, but don't base your entire school selection on it, please. Okay, experiences. So aside from getting a degree, you want to go to the school and have great experiences while you're there. Um, Look at what professional organizations the students have in that school. If you're interested in water resources and there's a student organization for water resource engineers, that's great. Um, you can join that. You can be a part of it. You can go to conferences. When I talk about internships and getting a job, I talk about joining professional organizations and getting involved as a really great way of getting a job. So please watch those videos and consider what organization opportunities you will have at the schools that you're looking at. If there are a lot of professional organizations that are student chapters, that's a really good sign that the school is healthy in terms of technical slash social opportunities for you. And then study or work abroad. So I had study abroad here and I added or work because there actually are schools that will help you work abroad rather than just going for the semester to study. Maybe they'll help you go work abroad for a semester or a summer. So it's definitely something to look at. In If they have programs in your major, that's going to be the easiest way because that means it's already set up. You already know that your classes will transfer. You won't be just taking gen eds, but you'll be taking something specific to your major and hopefully in a location in the world that you're interested in and applies to your major. And then also, there are schools that are part of these international study abroad programs and consortiums. That means you're open to a huge opportunities with study abroad and not limited to just a few locations. So that's something to look for. Generally, the schools that have significant portion of their students studying abroad are connected to these programs. Okay, and then community service. So in the Be Inspired in video that I did a while ago, I provided a link to the Dream Big movie. The Dream Big movie is all about how engineering and STEM careers in general are about community service, about bettering our society. And you can do that in school. You can look at these programs in schools. There are some schools that have community service for credit. There is a program called Engineering Projects in Community Service, EPICS. It started at Purdue University in the 90s and is now all over the Americas and in India. And these are programs in schools where students will get together and use their engineering skills and also a lot of other skills to work as a team to provide an engineering deliverable that helps a community. Um, these are really, really great programs. It gives you a lot of work experience, and you can get credit in some schools. So it's not something just additional you're doing. It's something that you're applying towards your degree and also getting real world experience and getting exposure to things and having opportunities to travel as depending on the scope you're on. If that's not the case, in some schools, there's a lot of schools that don't have that, but there may be clubs in the university that do that. And so that's something also to look into. Engineers Without Borders is typically a club instead of a credit, but something that is also a great opportunity. If you've heard of Doctors Without Borders, it's a similar concept where professionals, and in this case students, will work together to deliver some engineering thing for a community. Engineers Without Borders will typically travel to the location, so there's probably more opportunity to travel in those kind of situations. Okay, career considerations. This is the big deal. This is what is the important part, and I absolutely think that this is the focus of your college selection process. So the reason you're getting a degree is so you can have a career. You have a career by being employed by an employer, generally. There are some people who will go to grad school right after their undergrad, or they'll go start a company. But for the most part, we have a successful kickoff to our career because we are being hired. So this is the most important piece. So I want you to look at a school from the perspective of what happens to people when they leave. So what are the outcomes from the graduates? Do they go on to be successful? Do they get paid a lot? Do they go into careers that you're interested in? All of those things. This is where it takes a little bit more effort than maybe you want to spend on a lot of schools. So this might be the part that you want to wait till after you've accepted, or maybe you want to do it earlier. But you can just Google a school name and it'll give you the graduation rate. It's pretty easy. On the right side of the page, it will tell you what the percent is. I wouldn't take that completely as an absolute indication of something, but you should look at it. If the graduation rate is really, really low, you've got to start asking some questions. Why is it that people are not graduating? Sometimes it's because people can't afford to go there anymore. Sometimes it's because they get busy with life and they're trying to do school part-time. So is there a possible trap for you where you're not going to be able to graduate? So absolutely look at that. Salaries. So if you type in a school name and put graduate outcomes, often but not always, it'll tell you the average salary for the graduates from that school. Again, this is per school, not per major. So if you're going to go major in engineering at a school that's a general school with a lot of degrees that make less money, then the average salary for graduates in that school is going to be lower than a school that focuses on higher salary, higher paid positions. So it's something to consider. But also, if you see salaries that are significantly higher than another school, that's also something to ask and to consider. And salaries, as you know, have a lot to do with where in the country you are. So that's also another consideration. But you just need to understand that the reason you're going to school is so you can graduate and that you can make money by getting hired by somebody. Those are a couple different pieces to that you need to be focusing on. So the biggest thing, and on the first slide I put employers, 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 because the the employers who come to recruit at the school are the most important piece of this. It's a little bit hard to find, but if you look, you can find the employers recruiting interns, the employers recruiting new graduates, the employers sponsoring organizations. If you know somebody's at these schools, that's a good thing to ask them is who's at the career fairs. You can also Google the name of the university and recruiting. If it's a big sports school, the results will be sports. But if you look down a little bit on the list, you can see the schools generally have websites for job fairs because they want employers to come sign up for the job fairs. But there are lots of links you can just dig a little bit and find. I found that University of Nevada, Reno had a list of employers that were at a recent job fair. I did that just with a couple minutes of searching. And what they listed was the employers and then the kind of jobs they were recruiting for. So it was interesting. I could see that Mars Company recruits from there. Okay, so then I could look at Mars Company and see, is that somewhere I'd like to work? Am I interested in making food for people, candy for people, dog food, whatever else Mars does? If that's something I'm interested in, then that school may be a good fit for me because I can go to a career fair early on and talk to the Mars people and talk to them about what they look for in graduates and start building that relationship. Maybe I can get an internship after my freshman year with them and start moving in that direction. Um, these Finding the employers that hire from a school is a good indication of what kind of future you may have if you go to that school. Um, If you can't find it online, call the career office, see if you can get that. If you're going on a tour of the school, ask. And if you can ask in your specific major, that's always better because that'll be more specific to what your situation may be when you get to the end. But remember, you're in school to get a job. You need to graduate. You need to have a salary at the end. And finding what kind of employers recruit is really important, especially in STEM. What you'll find is that some schools will tailor their programs towards certain employers. Um, if there's a big power company in town that wants a lot of electrical engineers that know about power transmission, then the electrical engineering major at that school and possibly electrical technology major at that school will be focusing more on power and probably less on computer side of electrical. So, great way to just see where the graduates go and what they do and what your future might hold if you go there. Okay, so that is the end of the video. If you have questions, please leave a comment with this video. I'm happy to talk more about different things, have a discussion with you, or post more videos. This is really just scratching the surface on what kind of information goes into choosing a school. But again, I think the most important piece is understanding what happens to people who graduate from there and what that could mean for you for your future. So thanks for listening to the end. Like and subscribe, and also check out our other videos, and have a great day.